Funding for Discovery Road brought to you in part by Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area and by Trinchera Blanca Foundation and the National Park Service.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Discovery Road. I'm James Nelson. You know, water always seems to get the last word out here in the American West, doesn't it? It has to be on time. Of course, you should never waste it. And if you don't have enough, life could get pretty doggone rough. Which is why every spring when nature begins handing out those promises and the water begins to flow, those timeless acequias take us back to the future. In southern Colorado and northern New Mexico, acequias are a very unique and historic method of water management. They are tied to tradition, community spirit, and a shared sense of responsibility about water resources and water rights.
But it's very peaceful out here, and I can irrigate all the way till 3-4 o'clock in the morning. If I want, I can come out and change my water. Just depends what I have going.
Early settlers faced bony, dried-up land in the sprawling San Luis Valley. In order to make a go of it, farmers had to band together, share the water, and give everyone a chance.
The water for the valley is our lifeblood. It's dry, blow away. You know, there's years here that people can't make it. Just hang on, just hang on to survive.
Yes, it's not a joke, it's real.
No joke, it's for real.
Over the years, Gallegos has seen the dispensation of water and its unruly ways. One year it's a thirst-quenching gift, selling the idea that happy days are here again. But just one season later, a bone-dry emptiness sets in. And then another parched year on top of that one, leaving withered and wrecked lives scattered around the valley. After World War II, there was a particularly bad stretch.
This one here we have here is Capling Ditch, and number 6. 2, 3, and 4 that were up higher, they're gone. The people had to leave. They dropped on water, they couldn't draw their water out, and they couldn't afford to build up these diversions and stuff like they do now. You know, modern days, we get a lot of help from different organizations that picks up the river and stuff, but at that time, that's saying after the Second World War, probably when I think most of them left.
Cold and sad leftover images of those who couldn't make it. Scattered bones of defeat, desolation, and loss from those who were trying to scratch out a living in the American West when the water ran out.
There's a saying here in the valley, water is life, and it is definitely the case here. Without water, there would be no farming and agriculture here. Farming is our main livelihood in this valley, and water is the #1 asset that we have to protect.
Chuck Finnegan's family roots in Colorado can be traced back to the 1800s. His wife, Valerie Martinez Finnegan, has family beginnings that go back even further. And from acequias to the water irrigation canals today, pretty much the very same issues.
This well, along with most of them in the area, were put in the 1960s and were used as supplemental water. The spring flow started reducing as early as the 1950s by the droughts that hit really big in the early 60s.
There are many organizations that have attempted to reappropriate water in the valley here, and mainly to take and export it outside of the valley for other uses. Claiming that there's excess of water that's unclaimed, and many battles have taken place in this valley in order to protect the water and keep it in the valley.
No matter how deep down you dive into the water story, you'll find inquisitions, reports, and undetermined assumptions. Here's The Irrigation Age, a 1908 publication that reports Judge J.A. McIntyre was appointed as referee, and for 2 years, testimony was taken to prove appropriators' rights to water. In this 1941 Water Commissioner's Field Book, a water history, names of the ditches, reservoirs, handwritten notations of water amounts, when it was first used, the kind of crops that were planted, and acres irrigated. It's all found in the book.
The future of water in the San Luis Valley has pretty well been defined. We're using more than what we actually have. The peak day of water use in the valley is going to be slowing down. We know we have been borrowing water from others and from our future, and the process of having it controlled is in process now, and we're definitely going to have less irrigated acres in the future than what we currently have now, but it's a bright future for what water we have.
So this here is the family property. There's roughly 120 acres that go from the base of that little hill up there where the chamizo ends all the way to the river. It's roughly about 1 mile long and 1/4 mile wide. I may not have enough water to spend. So we want to bring water to put onto this field. So we have to jump the water from this ditch into this ditch in order to do it.
Regan Velasquez loves his ranching lifestyle, but he'll quickly tell you it would not be here to enjoy if there was no water.
We've been farmers. My grandfather ran sheep. Sheep need water to drink. You need pasture, you got to irrigate those pastures. So the only way you can do it is with water. Most of these ditches came about in the 1850s, 1857 to 1870s. The water was divided up, and that's how, people got their water.
Of course, there is one more very important ingredient to the family success story: hard work.
Looking at some of the old records to build these ditches, right now we've got tractors and steam and all kinds of power. They used horses. They used shovels. The team would get paid $3 and a man would get paid $1.50 a day. It was hard work, but that's how they built these ditches. They were all horse and hand dug to get water from the river to your crops.
Velasquez is not only a rancher, he's vice president of an Acequias association. He calls himself an ag agronomist and a ditch rider. But before all of that, he had another job that took him all around the world, as these photographs show. He tested equipment and gear for REI, but he always knew eventually he would come back home for some unfinished business.
Why did I come back? After 32 in the outdoor industry, I was at the top of my field. I got paid to go play in the mountains and test gear and try to make it break and make it better. But I always had dirt under my fingernails. I was a farmer at heart. I was a rancher at heart. And when I left the ranch back in the early 80s, mid 80s, I always knew that I wanted to come back.
So one of the things we do is, while we're irrigating the alfalfa fields, these meadows will rest, and then when we irrigate the meadows, then we let the alfalfa fields rest. To have water running on your land 24/7 is not good, so we'll irrigate everything and then give it about a 7-day rest.
Velasquez says maintaining the ditches is part of his mission. And oh yes, he knows how valuable water is. And he makes sure that awareness, concern, and care for it never diminishes.
I don't ever want to see these ditches go away, but as you know, everybody's fighting for the valley water. And the more you learn about it and why we have this water and who's trying to get it, the more you want to fight to keep it.
This is what you want in a herd of animals. They know you, you know them. They don't get startled. It makes working them so much easier when you have gentle cows. I've been in herds where as soon as they see you, they get that strange eye and they bolt on you. These, they'll come up to you and ask for a handout.
And they talk to you too, Regan.
Well, I have to find her calf because she's been bellowing.
They also are working to heal the land from overgrazing and mismanagement by implementing modern principles, soil health, cover crops, rotational grazing, and water conservation.
We just have to spread the word, and we have to show people the results because they don't believe you when you tell them. You have to physically show them. This was bare ground 2 years ago. Now I have grass there, and I didn't put a single seed down.
That's what I'm proud of. This particular area, this is the beauty of what we're doing. You can see the results. It doesn't take 5 years. This was great a month ago, and it looks beautiful.
When it comes to the water story out here, this is a man of substance, considerable and necessary influence. He's a ditch rider, entrusted with a traditional role tailored to fit the needs of farmers and ranchers in a modern world.
I see a lot of debris and stuff. Is that one of the issues? To get the water flowing, you got to make sure everything's clear in the channels?
Yes, yes. And the trash you see here is the stuff I've cleaned out this year alone.
Gallegos is one of hundreds of ditch riders who manage the water resource. They check the ditches, clean the ditches, measure water flow, open gates, shut gates, like a traffic cop on a farm, signal when the water is coming your way. And unwittingly, they keep the Acequias form of civic governance.
I get up in the morning, I come out to the ditch, I take a look at what the river's doing, how much water we have coming down the river. I check the diversion that's further up, make sure there's no debris, making sure we have water coming to do our diversion ditch behind me.
Everyone knows the ditch rider. This farmer flagged Gallegos down just to get an idea of when he would get the green light, when he would get the water flowing in his direction.
Yeah, today if you can send it. I mean, don't go just a special trail.
People know me by my truck, people know me because we've grown up together. I met Bob just a minute ago and he's asking me for their water tomorrow or whenever I could get it to them. This will tell me as of 1 p.m. in the Capuline ditch, almost 20 feet of water running through here now. If you can see where I turned it up this morning, I opened it up to give him his water. This is a little over 40 acres on this side of the Lahara Creek, and then got some more farmland on the other side of the Lahara River.
Gallegos leases the land from a family member. He farms and takes care of it, spring seeding, controlling the weeds, working the place to get the best yield. And of course, proper irrigation. Everything a good ditch rider needs to know every doggone day.
These fields are green. I mean, they're abundant with alfalfa. You know, the grains are being planted.
The ditch rider, part diplomat, supervisor, director, and neighborhood boss over the water, with just a few rules to keep the water flowing in good years and bad years in the right direction.
Not necessarily trying to please people or make people happy, but definitely if, you know, other people aren't using the water, there's plenty of water in the ditch, you know, giving them what they want. It means cutting some water back so that, you know, it's a little bit easier for them. We'll cut it back.
It's like being sort of the sheriff of the ditch company, where you have to appropriate water, you know, as fairly and equitably and also as efficiently as possible. So that's the whole trick.
Steve Romero has been a ditch rider for more than a dozen years, and his ancestors were right there when the first water rights were being handed out.
Our families go back decades and centuries. My third great grandfather, Dario Gallegos, registered the first water right in the state of Colorado with the other people from the ditch.
Romero says his ditch company runs smoothly, but during a dry year, yes, stress, pressure, it all puts people on edge. But reliance, at least in part, on the traditional Acequia blueprint works.
What's so special about that system, you know, is that it's been unchanged largely. I mean, there's been structural changes here and there, but overall the system has remained the same for, you know, over 150 years. I think about clearing these lands with beasts of burden and the tools that they had back then. And it's remarkable that they were able to provide that future for us.
The water was there, and we had a great winter in the mountains and got an early start on all the crops this year, and everything is green. I mean, everything's growing.
Being little, we played with the water. We stole the water from our uncle to play in the bosque with the water.
For Norma Chacon, those early playtime days in the water were quickly swapped out for the more important things on the family ranch. You see, her ancestors had helped settle the area. Her grandfather, Jose de la Luz, worked the big sheep and cattle operation, and water rights made it happen.
My grandfather is from Los Sauces. His father, Diego Marcus, came from New Mexico. He was one of the 3 settlers of Los Sauces. My grandfather, and I think there's probably about 10 kids there that were born. And out of those 10 kids, my grandfather, Jose de la Luz Marquez, he treaded out west, and he came from Los Sauces over here, which is probably about 10, 15 miles from Los Sauces. My understanding is that he bought dirt road to dirt road to dirt road. He bought a square mile of land.
We're going to be looking at some old equipment that's been laying around for at least 80 years, and that was used by the ancestors when they first came down here.
For generations inside that square mile, the family farmed the land, pulling water from the ditches, raising the crops, making it work. Jose de la Luz, also from Los Sauces, had remarried. His second wife, Adelaida Valdez, and together they ran a big sheep and cattle operation until he died at the age of 55, leaving his wife to run the place. And a generation later, another woman in the family would take the reins.
I look at my grandmother as a very strong-willed woman. She hired hands. She had her sons do the work. She was a go-getter. She didn't give up. She didn't give up. I would hear stories about her that she ran the land along with her sons. My father died when he was 35 years old, leaving my mother with some land and 5 little kids. The oldest one was 10. I was 2. And so my mom basically had to fight for the land. Her brothers-in-law basically rented and ran the farm for her.
This is a mower they used to use to cut the grass and the alfalfa, and again, it was pulled by horse.
Norma's mother had to sell off most of the sheep operation. Land leases had to be let go. Today, Norma and Manuel take care of the original property.
We enjoy doing it. We're learning as we go. Yes, we get the water for 4 days for both sets of land. We use it because, it's pretty dry. Last year, I know we had a lot of rain, and that was wonderful because it's very dry up here.
Why not pack up and just go to Denver?
Oh, no. This is home. My roots are deep. My roots are deep. I think there's only a handful of cousins that still live here. This is home. And like I said, it's respect for Grandpa, for Grandma, for the work and hardships they put into this land, into this farm. This is where I am. This is where I want to be.
San Luis, Colorado, considered to be the oldest town in the state, home to about 600 people. It's a one-of-a-kind place. Surrounded by the beauty of the Sangre de Cristo and San Juan Mountains, and just above the town on a gentle mesa, the Stations of the Cross Shrine, a spiritual pathway of bronze sculptures that climb to the parish, where worshipers solemnize their sacred heritage and where visitors can find solace. Down below, the communal pasture and birthplace of the People's Ditch, the oldest irrigation waterway in Colorado. Charles Chavez grew up on this farm, 60 acres of grass and alfalfa. His parents bought the place back in 1961, along with 53 water shares. After high school, he left for the city. He did take some college courses and then worked running the Corral Bar over in Blanca. But after nearly 3 decades, he found his way back home.
Ever since I was small, my dad taught me how to drive the tractor. If I wasn't driving the tractor, he'd take me out with him and we'd go and irrigate. He'd show me how he was doing it and things like that. I just grew up with it in my blood. Everything that my father had taught me, and my mom, she taught me a lot of things too. And they did teach my other siblings too, my sister and my brother.
Flickering images of life in San Luis, Colorado. Half a century old films showing proud, benevolent people, dressed up in fancy clothes, the best boots and hats for special occasions, and to celebrate the vitality in the valley and the life-giving water ushered in by the Acequias.
It is the oldest ditch that is still in service in the state of Colorado. And when they dug the ditch, and it was dug by hand, of course, it was almost 24 years before Colorado was a state. So there's a lot of history to this San Luis People's Ditch.
Those films were taken by my mom and my dad whenever mom would let the camera go. They were taken at least 50 years ago, some of them. And throughout the years as we grew up, everything changed. You could see how things were changing.
Charles and his sister Sally learned very quickly about the water story. As the water flows, so goes the town. Let the good times flow.
We would go swimming in the Acequia, and we would have so much fun. And as we grew older, we began to realize that the water was so important, not only for the land, but also for our livelihood.
There's a lot of history to this San Luis People's Ditch. It does serve 1,600 acres. There's numerous shareholders now. As the old shareholders pass away, then the families take over. So a lot of families, they start getting into the picture. So there's going to be a few more.
Those old 8mm film reels are a chronicle of early days in the town and on the farm. Wistful memories for the family and historic footnotes for the community. An old movie version of Back to the Future down on the farm.
It seems like I had more of the interest where I wanted to eventually take over if my dad wasn't able to do it, and now that he's not around, I did learn from a good man. Hopefully I can pass on a little bit of his knowledge to my kids and to my sister's kids if they're interested.
A man and his shovel bringing water to a quiet meadow. A colorful and striking metaphor about holding on to history and family.
Water is life. Without water, you wouldn't have anything. So areas like this, we are fortunate for what we have.
My brothers and I were fortunate to grow up on the farm. Our parents were full-time educators, not only in the classroom, but also out of the classroom. They also worked very, very hard on the farm. They taught us responsibility. They taught us good work ethics. And very importantly, they taught us respect. Respect for the land, for the water, and for the people.
More than one family told us their biggest heartache is losing the young people. If they don't understand the Acequias, the water carriers of life, those historic pieces of the past, well, the true meaning of tradition, culture, and heritage will be lost.
Yeah, usually this canal here, the Morgan ditch, doesn't run. It hasn't ran for like the last 4 years. And this year it ran. pretty cool. Coolest I've seen it. That's been for 10 years. My grandma.
Important history is not lost on this promising 28-year-old man. He wraps both arms around the farming opportunity that has been handed down to him. Approximately 500 acres of alfalfa and oats in the Capulan, Colorado area.
To me, it's not really like work. They say if you like what you do, you don't work a day in your life, and I don't mind what I do.
His grandfather and great-grandfather are both gone now, but Martinez is mature beyond his years, employing now what he's learned from both men to keep it all going.
Everything we raise all summer is hauled all winter, so it's like a year-round thing to me. It's just a process, a cycle that keeps repeating, and it's not really like, oh, I have to go to work and clock in, clock out. To me, it's more like, oh, another day, let's go, let's get it.
The ancient irrigation canals are less visible today, but the traditions and culture of their nurturing mission, still there.
Like even with the watering, I remember we'd be out there irrigating late at night. He'd go, let his irrigator go home and say, I'll finish it. And me and him would stay there all night, and I'm there like just tired there with the shovel. Let's go home, let's go home. And now that I'm older, I realize the importance of getting the whole crop wet, because you leave a dry spot, that's not gonna grow.
As Martinez was handed the reins of the farm operation, his grandfather balked at some of the changes. And the fancy ways of watering the crops, oh yes, that took some getting used to.
He liked it once he saw the production increase and how you can irrigate all this. Once he saw that I could connect it to my phone, he was like, wow. Then he'd go around and tell all his friends, hey, that new sprinkler we have, Michael controls it with his phone.
Taking on farm work means a lot of responsibility, and the dynamics of a growing family, of course, always important, as the entire operation plows forward into the future.
Park it right here, that way it's ready to try.
I've been doing this since I was about 14 years old.
Really? Who taught you?
My dad. My dad taught me everything that I know. I started from a baler.
The work ethic and respect for the land and water inculcated throughout the entire family.
I did win a conservation award when I was in 6th grade, and all I did was drew my dad's farm, you know, but because it had all the ditches and the reservoir and the way it came from, you know, the head gate and stuff like that, you know, but my dad and my grandpa taught me the importance of water.
We'd go to eat, he'd get a beer, he'd be, get him a Roy Rogers, get him a Shirley Temple. They always said, here comes Pete, and repeat. Because I was always with him. They were always like, oh, he's your sidekick. It was just always cool. He like always just took me under his wing and was like, I guess he knew I was gonna be the future or something.
Holding on to the past with a Thanksgiving appreciation for the future. An intriguing, powerful, and important story about being thirsty in the American West. I'm James Nelson. We'll see you next time out here on Discovery Road.